Welcome back to the Dawson Show. This is Brandon Dawson. I'm excited to be talking to you today about being intentional. I just came back from a talk that I gave with Grant and Elena Cardone last night and a whole litany of other speakers. And it dawned on me that there's 600 or 700 people in the room, and they're all there to learn something. They're there to gain insight to something. They're there to meet other people from their community. And if you think about this, how many business owners intentionally put themselves in play in their own communities? Like, if I was to start a business in any market, the first thing I do is look at every single event going on in that market, large, small, and I would sign up for every single event. I would be going there not only to learn about what some of the speakers have to say, especially the locals, right? If you're going to events where there's local speakers, what better way to present yourself and your organization than to go meet people where they're at and show an interest in the things that they're talking about? At the very least, you could decide if you can align with the things that they're talking about so that you could choose if you want to intentionally meet them and see how and where you could take the relationship to. Being intentional and being present and putting yourself in a position to win is all about mindset. And one of my absolute favorite phrases is what you think is what you say is what you do, and what you do becomes ultimately your legacy. So the challenge I would have for you today is to identify, fast forward 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, doesn't matter how far out you go, but go far out, further out than you can see today. Go through an exercise of identifying. Write it down. When I'm no longer doing the things that I'm going to do, what do I want people to say that I did? What do I want my impact to be? What do I want the ultimate summation of my whole life? What do I want people to say, and what do I or would I have wanted to do? For me, I can see creating a fund of funds impacting thousands of independent business owners, creating so much intrinsic value for them that they wouldn't want to work with anybody but me. And in the process of doing that, impacting tens of thousands of lives by helping business owners achieve their personal, professional, financial goals and teaching them to teach the people that help them do it accomplish their goals. So my mission is to help tens of thousands of people impact their lives personally, professionally, financially while they're going through their life working, building something either for themselves, their community, their family, whatever it is. Now, what I do to do that, or how I exactly do that, I didn't always know. But after founding my past company, Audigy Group, or my current company, Audigy Group, and growing it and doing just that on a smaller scale, it impressed upon me that this is how I'm going to do it. Like, I found a way to help thousands of people pursue their personal, professional, financial goals through creating a business that could create value for their businesses. And now what I'm going to do that is I'm going to 10x that. I'm going to take it to a whole nother level. And once I accomplish that, I'm certainly going to 10x it again, because for me, it's not the place that I arrive at. It's the process, the enjoyment of the process. And that's what last night reminded me of. After my talk, I was in the back of the room with about a dozen business owners who are all challenged with different things. And to sit and listen to their challenges, understanding that what they're dealing with are things I've dealt with. Like, I can directly relate to the things that they're challenged with. And I have vision into the future of different choices, different actions, creating different results. And in that conversation, being able to bond with people that I otherwise would have not met had I not showed up and spoke at the event, realizing that I can help these people. And I think what I want to impress upon you in this podcast is this. It doesn't matter where you're at or what you've done to date. It matters where you're going. The more intentional you can be with yourself about the impact you want to create, the things that you want to do, the type of people you want to do it with, the more clarity you'll have in what you're doing, who you're talking to, and why you're talking to them today. Intentionality is such an important word because the more clarity you have and the more intentionality you have about pursuing that bigger picture, that legacy that you want to create, and the more you think about that, the more you can communicate it. So what I find, and Grant talks about this and I talk about it, is that most people think too small. So think beyond, just challenge yourself. I just encourage you, because this is the conversation I'm having with business owners. I've got 35 business owners in town this weekend. And I assure you, going into these conversations, because the process I've gone through with them through my program is I have transparency into how they're thinking right now. In every single case, the things that they're dealing with, it's because they're thinking too small. When you think small, everything's a problem. When you think way out and huge, it's an opportunity to solve the thing that's keeping you from the big opportunity. But if you're not thinking that big and you're thinking small, then all these little things that you're dealing with every single day that seem like problems or challenges, they pull you off track and they drown you in the emotional or the strategic or the whatever you're dealing with. They drown you in that, and then it seems like it's too hard to break through that. So you get stuck in the little things, and you start letting those little things control you and pull you around, like going to a meeting and maybe saying something that made you feel dumb, or answering a question that you didn't answer right, or introducing yourself in a way where you didn't feel it represented the highest and best value. Now, in that moment, you can tuck your tail and say, I'm not going to subject myself to this again, and go home, and then wish you could have some different thing happen in your life. Or you can immediately walk out and say, when I said that, I didn't say it right. How could I say it different? What would I want somebody to hear if I was given an opportunity to say that again? And you can take notes and you can write things down, and you can go listen to other people who have developed their speaking skills or their intercommunication skills or their topic skills or the depth of some kind of topic. And you can take really good notes, and you can drill, practice, and rehearse in your own mind. Like this morning, flying home, I spent on a 2-hour flight this morning, 1 hour visualizing, literally signing documents, putting people into my business, what conversations I'm having, how many of those people, where I'm putting them when I do my meetings, like who sits where, and why do I have them sit there, and who's engaging them, and what are we talking about, and what information do I need in order to help them. Like, I visualize this as though I'm in a room with thousands of people, and I'm segmenting the room based on the type of industry they're in, and the type of problems they're dealing with, and the type of technical issues and people issues. Because in my mind, I'm formatting in advance what is going to happen and how I should be dealing with it. So it's intuitive for me when I get there, and I've got a plan. And when I talk to people, I speak about that bigger plan. What that does is it helps me find people today that can either be an example to that plan, they could be someone who could influence decisions I make in the process of trying to accomplish that plan, or it could be somebody that I can lean into from a relationship standpoint that might be participating in that plan in the future. But if I'm not talking about that future plan, I'm not talking about the things that I want to build, I'm not talking about the things I want to do, I'm not talking about the process I'm going about getting there and the type of people I'd want to work with, how can the universe, how can any people, how can any ecosystem, how can anything help me if I'm unclear as to where I want to go, what I want to do, who I want to do it with, and what the impact ultimately is? Now, this is true for you if you work in somebody else's organization. I call those people intrapreneurs. If you're thinking about the future, you're thinking about the impact, you're thinking about your contribution, you're thinking about your development of your skill set, you're thinking about how you're going to add more value into the environment, into the business, into the organization, for the people in the organization. So one day you can be in a leadership position, not today when you have all these opinions, but one day when you've earned the right to sit at the seat because you're an example of the things that edify the organization and show success. That is visualizing your future if you're an intrapreneur in somebody else's business. If you're a solopreneur, what is the impact you want to make? Do you want to be a solopreneur? What leverage can you create for yourself, and what message can you create, and how do you put yourself in the position to win? But if you're an entrepreneur, how do you get hundreds of people to amplify that, to edify that? How do you create intrapreneurs inside your organization to support you and help you? And what kind of people would they look like? And what kind of success would you want them to have? And how would you align them with the business? And how would you want them to contribute to the business? And how could you build something where everyone feels like they're pulling success together versus you trying to shove it down everybody's throat? How do you visualize your future no matter where you're starting from? Because the ability to be intentional and to see your future self and to put things in place and to develop yourself today is the technical skill set to move yourself to where you want to be, and for you to become a leader or an example to others to do the same thing. That in itself, all by itself, is the very thing that most people don't know how to do. So if you want to propel yourself to a new level of thinking, a new level of doing, a new level of accomplishment, a new level of contribution to whatever it is you want to do, you first have to learn how to position your future self today by knowing what that future self looks like, knowing what that future self is doing and has done and who they've done it with, and then working backwards to a granular thought today. Who do I want to introduce myself to? What do I want them to know about me? How do I want them to perceive me? How serious do I want them to take me? How can I contribute to them so they'll want to contribute to me? Who can I learn from? Who can I take bits and pieces of things from in order to fit them into my little jigsaw puzzle of my future self? So the title of this podcast is Your Future Self. I'm going to have Will put that on the podcast, Your Future Self. And the exercise I want each of you to do, and by the way, for all those that listen to this podcast and watch the show, I want to tell you thank you, because you inspire me to come sit in the studio and have these conversations. The challenge I want to give you at the end of this podcast is this. Fast forward to some period of time in your life and ask yourself today, what do I want that person to look like? What do I want to have had that person do? How do I want people to perceive me? What things do I want to have in my life, from relationships and material things and whatever? It doesn't matter. What is that future self? And work backwards to what are you doing right now to find examples and create mentors and to build reference points in your own mind. Because your future will be the total sum of every reference point, every granular thing you do right now. One granular thing on top of another granular thing, building those granular building blocks to your future self. So the challenge is, what are you doing? What are you thinking? And what are you talking about today that will lead you to that future self? And how intentional are you on building that future self? And this podcast is dedicated to you and your future self.